Welcome, everyone. I'm Mariquita Solis, the live stream host of all-creatures.org. All-creatures.org was founded in 1998 and is a leading resource for faith-based animal rights veganism. Led by our executive director, Tams Nicholson, we provide free resources for people seeking to live compassionately towards all creatures. Our extensive library includes vegan sermons and commentaries, animal rights strategies, action alerts, events, and works by various vegan authors. We also sponsor websites for animal rights organizations. Our mission is to unite compassionate individuals worldwide who honor the dignity of all creatures. Today, I'm excited to welcome Diane Rose-Solomon, who has been a vegan since 2019. She originally went vegan out of compassion for animals. Other than breakfast, pasta, and salads, however, Diane didn't know how to cook anything plant-based. That is until she took a vegan cooking class. Now she enjoys helping others go from plant-based curious to plant-based confident. Her company, What's Plant-Based Cooking Good Looking, teaches people how to easily cook and eat plant-based or go vegan. Diane has also written books about animal rescue and produced short films about the human-animal bond. She earned her plant-based nutrition certification at eCornell and also is a vegan lifestyle coach and educator. So welcome, Diane. I'm excited that you're here with us today, and thank you, Angela Crawford, for connecting us.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to join you, Marquita. It's a pleasure.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you today because I think we have a lot in common. And we were talking beforehand about what it's like to be a vegan and the emotions and sometimes the roller coaster about it and how to deal with these things. So I'm excited to talk to this about these things with you, Diane. And you went to the Victoria Moran's Main Street Vegan Academy.
Yeah, I did.
Yes, and that's always that's a wonderful course.
So good. It's so good. As somebody said, I think it was Christine Cookmania, she's like, I loved being in vegan school.
That's funny. Yes, yeah. I know. What a safe place. So, all right, y'all. Well, everyone that's watching, please let us know where you're watching from, and then get your questions or comments ready. We're going to be taking questions at the end if we have any. So let us know where you're joining from. And thanks for watching. So, Diane, tell us about your vegan transition. When did you become a vegan, and what caused you to make that shift?
It was officially at the end of 2019. It was a really long process, starting in college in the 80s when I took a philosophy class and we read Animal Liberation. And it was really like the first time that I made the connection between chickens that go cluck, cluck and chickens on your plate. And I don't know why. I'm sure I'd made somewhat of a connection prior to that, but we just ate what was put in front of us. We didn't question it. Most people didn't. I know people who did question it, and I think, wow, I wish I had been that forward thinking and present, but I wasn't. I was sort of more normal, like most of us were, you know. And so I went I went vegetarian for 2 weeks. And that's all I could handle. Because the pressure around me was just to fit in with my friends. And I was just that person. And so I have a lot of compassion for people who just can't or are not willing to make that leap. But it was always in the back of my mind, like there's something wrong about eating animals. It's not okay. And over time, I'm like, well, I'm just not going to eat the big ones. I won't eat the cows. I won't eat the pigs. But I'll eat the chickens, you know, and it was just easier. Like it was easy. And I ate fish for a long time. And I certainly didn't know anything about dairy or eggs, that whole industry. And then after a while, I'm like, well, how come I decided that chickens were okay to eat? Like who am I? Am I playing God here? Like, that's not okay. And so I'm like, chickens are sentient beings too? No. And then I was a pescatarian, and then I had a spiritual experience, and I had been looking for an excuse to stop eating fish, and I had this, minor but spiritual experience, and I was like, okay, that's it, no more fish. But I was a vegetarian for a number of years until I then learned about the horrors of the dairy and the egg industries, and I was like, that's it, I've come this far, let's just. And it took a bit. Like I think I called myself vegan for a few months when I was still eating like desserts because I couldn't give that. I felt like I couldn't give that up. Like how could I? We're at a party and there's cake. How can I not eat that? I love that. And then one day I said, you know what? It's my morals are more important than that piece of cake. And I've learned that there's vegan cake out there too. So if I want to have my cake, I can eat it too. Yeah, so 2019, it really took all those years to finally, and I meet people all the time who are like, oh no, I watched a movie and that was it. The next day I was vegan. I'm like, wow, So I understand that for different people, it works different ways.
Yes, I had that also, kind of the same journey with vegetarian, in 95, and then trying vegan, and then it was hard. I mean, I'll say it was hard. For me. It was hard. I feel like I shouldn't say that, but that's just programming, I guess. But yes, it was challenging, and I want to. That's why I'm also very sympathetic to people, because I realized my struggles, and and also at that time it wasn't so easy to get vegan, and it's not.
Harder.
Yeah, it was a lot harder, and I still can't just run out to any old store and get a vegan dessert or vegan, you have to, I have to think about it. Even I'm in this suburb of Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, for me it was a journey of falling down and getting up and just being compassionate to myself and doing the best I can, and I still
Yeah.
am compassionate to myself. So it
Well,
sounds
that's
like
where
you
it
are
starts.
too.
Yeah, that's where it starts. We have to start with ourselves, right?
Right. Yes. And so when you did finally become vegan, did you have a lot of friends that perhaps were vegan, or how was that?
Nobody. I mean,
Okay.
nobody. It turns out that a elementary school friend of mine who I'm only connected with on social media, I haven't seen him in 40 something, 50 years, I don't know, a long time. And turns out he's vegan. And so I had an ally there. And then little by little, I started meeting more people. And I'd actually joined Vegan Toastmasters in 2014. So I actually did know those vegans, but they weren't my friends. And I had dropped off of Vegan Toastmasters for a bit because my kids were young and needed Sunday afternoon, which is when we meet. My kids had soccer practice, whatever they had. And I couldn't commit. So going back to Vegan Toastmasters, I think was like 2018. I think I was still vegetarian then. So I did know people, but they weren't my everyday buddies.
Hmm.
And in fact, I remember I've been teased a few times by friends, go out to dinner and there's a poke, and it just happens. And it just happens. And in the beginning, my husband was like, wow, that's really brave of you. And I'm not going to go vegan. I'm like, all right, you do you, I'll do me. But I stopped cooking for the family. At first I was still cooking meat. When I was first vegan, I was still cooking meat until one day I'm like, what am I doing? This is just not okay for me. I said, if you want to eat this stuff, you can make it yourselves. I
And what
stopped.
did they say?
Well, at that point, the kids were out of the house. They had both gone off to college. And so it was me and my husband. And I had started learning how to cook vegan. And I said, well, I'll cook and you'll see if you like it. And I knew the kinds of foods that he would eat. Like I knew he wouldn't eat curry, but I knew he would eat tofu teriyaki. So I made a tofu teriyaki. He loved it. And I knew he liked Caesar salad, so I made Caesar wraps with little tofu nuggets in it, like instead of chicken nuggets. He loved it. And all of a sudden, I'm building this repertoire of foods that he likes and I like, and we can eat together. And his cholesterol was like really high at first. And then that's when I studied plant based nutrition at Cornell. And his doctor wanted to put him on statins. And I said, before you go on statins, let me try like even refining this vegan cooking that I had learned how to cook and make it healthy. And let's see what we can do to your cholesterol with just good, healthy, whole food, plant based cooking. Because I sort of understood that you can be vegan and then you take it up a notch and with more veggies and more fruits and it's super healthy. And within 3 months, his cholesterol went from 258 to 178, which is a dramatic drop. And he's been sold, and he's not vegan, but in the house he's mostly vegan. And like if we go out, he'll eat something vegetarian. But
Uh-huh.
it's and he's very supportive, very supportive. But I know not everybody's spouse or family or friends are supportive, so I understand that.
And what would you say to people that I know people that are embarrassed to say that, you know, that their spouse is not vegan? What would you
Mm-hmm.
say to those people?
You know, I think it's a combination of we have to live and let live, right? We can't make people do something. That's part of it. People have to come to things when they're ready. Just like I wasn't ready to be vegetarian in the 80s, and I wasn't ready to be vegan until 2019. And so having compassion for myself first, right? Like I have to say, okay, I didn't know, I didn't understand it, I didn't get it. It took me a long time. For a lot of these people, they don't know, they don't get it, they don't understand it. So it might take them a long time too. They might never get there. And actually, one of the things I tell people is to read Melanie Joy's books, um, specifically on this topic, Beyond Beliefs, because it's about keeping the peace with your family, like not trying to convert people, but having vegan allies in your family and your friends. Like I won't try to convert you to veganism, but please be respectful about my beliefs when we're having dinner together, and not just beliefs, choices. And and I have found that with that, playing it that way in my life, it's been very effective. Everybody's like my friends all say, okay, let's make sure we pick a place that has blah 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 and something that Diane can eat too. And I'm like, well, let me just look at the menu to make sure I'm happy. And then it's great. I mean, I travel with friends, we do stuff, and everybody's just understanding. So that's what you want is an ally.
Yeah, I really resonate with that also. I have friends that are not vegan, and I have one friend that always eats vegan. I mean, specifically on purpose. I mean, for me, he says, you know, well, when I'm with you, I want to do that. So that really makes me feel good, you know. And the other friends are very respectful too. They make sure that when we go out, that there are things for me to eat. In fact, much more so than I would. They're more like, well, let me make sure, and I'll be like, I always tell them, well, I'm pretty sure I can find something because most restaurants have potatoes, they have vegetables in the back. I mean, I actually went to one that had almost nothing, which was incredible, but that usually doesn't happen. So,
Yeah, I was recently traveling. I was at a weekend with my daughter and her friends and their moms. And the girl whose birthday it was, she wanted to go to a steak place for dinner. It's her birthday, you know, and I said, let me just make sure that there's food I can eat. There was potatoes, there was salad, there was vegetables, and the waiter was really accommodating. He was really nice about it, and that made me. And I'm experiencing that more and more and more and more. The more I go out, you know, I like to frequent vegan establishments because I like supporting them, but it's not always possible. And, you know, most friends don't want to go to a vegan only restaurant, but pretty much everywhere I go, and I live in Los Angeles where, you know, I call it like one of the vegan meccas. But even when I leave, like I was in Colorado at that meat place, and, you know, people are pretty cool everywhere.
yes, I think you're right. Well, people are understanding the word vegan more so now,
Mm-hmm.
and I also like to kind of see what when I ask for a vegan meal, are they going to know what I'm talking about? Are they going to
Yeah,
be prepared to, you know? And then if I leave a kind impression, you know, then that's one more little notch for veganism. So
exactly. Well, that's just it. Like, do we want to be pushing our agenda, or do we want to be viewed as just regular people who are making a specific choice for a specific reason?
right. And that was interesting because I was telling someone, and I don't know if she was vegan or not. I don't think she was, but I was telling her yesterday that sometimes I coach vegans to really allow them to be accepting of people and not to be so pushy. And her
Mm-hmm.
response was, "Oh yeah, I know about that." So it's something that we don't really want. We don't want that kind of response. We don't want people saying, "Yeah, I know about the pushy vegans." If we
Yeah,
can, I know about the compassionate vegans would be a nice thing to hear. So,
that would be a great slogan. Like, I'm a compassionate vegan, or like, I'll be your friend. It's something along the line, I'm a friendly vegan or something like that. So
right. And there's I can't remember her last name now, Anne, but she sets up a table, Anne and Suzanne, off the top of my head. But anyway, I can't remember. But yeah, conversations with a friendly vegan. So
well,
that's
that's perfect. That's really perfect.
it is.
Very welcoming, very warm and
Yes,
welcoming. Yeah.
I love that. So, um, well, now that I guess things have changed a lot since you became vegan, and it sounds like your husband has really embraced the
Mhm.
cooking and everything. So how does the piece of not eating creatures manifest in your life today?
Well, it's first of all, there's a lot of peace. A lot. I like to say I can go to sleep at night knowing that I did the least amount of harm. You know, um, so that's one part of it. And there's so much that we don't have control over in this life, in this world, and it's somewhere where we do have control. What goes into our mouth all day long, and the clothing that we wear, because veganism is not exclusively just eating plant-based. It's also all the other choices that we make, the clothing that we wear, the products that we use on our skin and our home, um, and all of these choices. And it's it's empowering because we're I think, well, we live in a world where often we feel powerless, sometimes more times than others. And it's just one way where it starts internally, and then it can then that feeling of empowerment, and which can then extend outward. And it's the same thing with the idea of joy. Like, I feel joyful. First of all, learning how to cook was so much fun for me. Learning how to cook plant based, and now I love teaching it. And so again, there's joy involved, and it's like joy and peace and empowerment starting within and then radiating out. Like, what more can you ask?
That is true. I love that. Yes, it is almost like veganism is just this beautiful little round, ball of love, and it extends out to all creatures on the planet.
Exactly. And that's how it should be, right? I think that's how we're supposed to be. Just, in fact, that's like how we are. We're just love. And then when we actually are experiencing that, I think it can really radiate out, you know? So,
Yeah, I think that was our natural state until
hmm
I guess then we're undoing that programming of perfection.
hmm I agree with that.
So, um, what's been your most memorable experience of your vegan lifestyle so
Oh,
far?
goodness. It's possibly, well, there's a couple of things that come to mind. One is um, that aha that I had when, so I'd been vegan for a couple of years. I'd learned how to cook vegan. It took me a while, and I really was eating pasta and oatmeal and salads, a lot of that, or whatever I could grab at Whole Foods, like their wraps or whatever, vegan sushi. But I missed cooking, and it was really limited. And so I learned how to cook vegan food, and I was so happy. And all of a sudden, what seemed really weird and hard wasn't so weird and hard anymore, because I just wasn't familiar with the ingredients. Like, I would open a cookbook. In fact, I might even have the one. I don't see it here. It must be in the other room. Um, that I remember opening up, looking at the recipes and thinking, no, I don't know what these ingredients are, and just like slamming it shut and being throwing it away. And because I didn't know what the ingredients were, but when I took the cooking class and I had to buy those same ingredients for the class, And you learn to cook with them, and all of a sudden it's not so weird and it's not so hard anymore. And now you've got this ingredient in your pantry, and you're like, oh, well, the next time you see it on a recipe, like, oh, I have that, and I know how to cook with it. And all of a sudden, what seemed so hard and so overwhelming and so weird is becomes easier and easier and easier. Um, so I learned how to cook vegan, and I wanted to tell everybody, I'm vegan. It's no big deal. You can learn how to cook vegan. Like, this is totally doable. If I can do it, you can do it. But then I thought, wait, what if being vegan wasn't healthy? Like, what if I'm going to tell people to do something that isn't healthy? And that's when I studied plant-based nutrition at Cornell, and I learned that eating a healthy plant-based diet is really the healthiest way we can eat in the first place. And I thought, thank goodness, because now I can, eat aligned with my values and eat healthfully as well, with just a few tweaks to some of the recipes that I was making, just make them a little healthier. And it's just an example of how everything's connected. And when we're eating healthfully for our own bodies, it's doing right by the animals and it's doing right by the earth. And I call it the vegan trifecta,
Mm.
because it really connects everything. So that was um, probably the most memorable experience of my vegan journey, like that aha of plant-based eating. But another one was before I started teaching plant-based cooking, I was making short films about the human-animal bond. And it was really about companion animals, like therapy animals and service dogs, which I think have a wonderful place in our society at this point in time. Um, but when I first started making the films, it was with the idea of, wow, if people knew how amazing animals were, maybe they would stop eating them. But then one of my big ahas as I was making the films and realizing, okay, these films are lovely, but they're not, people aren't making that leap from, oh, a service dog is great, therefore I shouldn't eat lambs. Like there's no connection there. It wasn't helping. And it was partly because I wasn't focusing on that, but it was also, I realized that that's not where the work was that I wanted to do to help people learn more about veganism and plant-based eating, that I needed to shift. That was like a big aha for me, that because I used to write, well, I've written books about animal rescue, companion animal rescue, and same thing. There's so many people who are like I was before I was vegan. I was really into dog rescue. I still am. And for the longest time, I was still eating cows and pigs and chickens, but saving dogs. And that's another Melanie Joy book, why we love dogs, eat cows and wear pigs, or eat pigs and wear cows. I don't remember. And so I have compassion for people who love their pets, but say that they love animals, but they still continue to eat animals, because I was there for a long time myself. So that's why I can have compassion for people. And at the same time, I feel like, okay, people, it's time to start paying attention. If you say you love animals, let's stop eating the ones that just don't live in your home. So that was a big aha for me.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a big hurdle. I mean,
Yeah.
a big hurdle. Yeah. So, well, I can really resonate with all of that. Um, and we were talking earlier about the struggles that vegans have. I mean, I feel like sometimes I'm just overwhelmed with vegan, just vegan, 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 vegan hitting me, my news feed all the time. And it's like sometimes I just want to get away from it. I mean, I feel overwhelmed. And so maybe it's, um, and I, and sometimes I actually do go out with friends that aren't vegan just to have a break from it. And I
Mm.
don't know. I mean, I could also think, gosh, I feel guilty about that, or but what are your thoughts on that? I mean, this vegan struggle and this, I mean, as an individual and then as a collective.
Yeah. So I love that you go out with your friends, even that who aren't vegan. I have way more friends who aren't vegan, and it's an opportunity to. I mean, my friends don't all eat vegan in front of me, but I think that they're more mindful of it. And so, like, there's a win right there, right? That in that meal they were more mindful, and maybe that'll carry over somewhere else. And again, just rubbing off on people and people seeing that it's not that hard. And like, how often do you get a vegan meal when you're with your non-vegan friends and they're like, oh, that looks good, and you're like, well, you could have ordered that too, you didn't have to.
Yes.
So, so I hear what you're saying both on the collective level, because I know people who are really into the whole vegan, like you should wear a vegan t-shirt and shout it loud and proud, and I'm like, no, that's not me. Everybody's got their different way of representing the movement, or you will, if you will. For some people, it's wear a t-shirt, be on every social platform, telling everybody to be vegan. But that, if somebody just said to me, be vegan, I'd be like, why? Like, what? Because you're telling me to? I'm not so sure that that's making an impression on me. But when I can learn on my own, in my own time, by watching a film or reading a book or hearing somebody talk about it, then I'm more likely to make my own decision. People need to feel like the idea came from them, not because you said go vegan, right? So I wonder. I feel like, what do they say? It takes like 8 touches for people to make a buying decision or something, whatever it is. So if they met me somewhere and they heard I was vegan, and then they meet you one day and they hear that you host a podcast, and then they meet somebody else, and all of a sudden they sometimes it just takes people a while till they've heard things enough times and seen things enough times, and then when they're ready, they're going to do it. So I do believe that it all counts. Seeing the person who's aggressive and saying, and there's a place for that. I have so much respect for people who are on the front lines, leafleting, going to pig vigils. Like, good for you. I can't personally do that, but I'm so glad people are making noise and doing that. All the work that Pete has been doing for all these years, I'm so glad they've been doing that. But for me, my activism is by cooking and by writing. And if people learn something through what I've created, fantastic. And if I'm just one of those touches, that's great. So, from a collective standpoint, I feel like everybody's got to do what in their hearts works for them towards helping people become more vegan. That's first of all. And from an individual level, I hear a lot, and everybody's got a different experience. Oh, it must be hard, or don't try to whitewash going vegan because it's harder than people think. And I'm thinking, sometimes when we say these things out loud, it becomes so. So what if it wasn't hard? What if it was just a process, right? Like, you wake up one morning and you realize, oh, I know how to cook oatmeal. Yay me, I know how to make one thing, right? And I know how to make salads. And if I ate oatmeal and salads and pasta for the rest of my life, I'd probably be okay, But then you get curious and you say, well, what if I wasn't limited to all of that and I wanted to expand my eating repertoire? And what if I wanted to learn more about the different things that I could cook and the different clothing I could substitute for this leather jacket? There's fake leather and that you can wear. And well, it's a process. It's a learning process. And not all learning has to be hard. It could be enjoyable. It could be fun. And so I think that change can be very hard for people, and I understand that it can be, and a lot of people aren't ready to make that change. But we can also change our perception a little bit about making changes. And maybe we don't have to use the word hard, because then it feels hard.
Mm-hmm.
What if we're using different terminology of, it's a process and it was challenging at first, but I'm capable, I figured it out. And there's so much mentorship too, and there's mentorship, and there's books, and there's the internet, and there's wonderful people that want to help people along the way. So you don't have to do it alone.
That's very true. I love that, what you're saying. Just allow it to be whatever it is, let go of the labels.
Exactly.
That's beautiful. And I see Ellen is joining us. She also has her certification in plant-based nutrition, and she's saying, yes, we all have our ahas. So I'm sure she's out there also teaching. And I think that is so important, teaching how to eat plant based, how to eat vegan, because people come up to me all the time and are interested, and that is really one big thing that's holding them back. So y'all are very, very important. So I thank y'all for that. Um, let's talk a little bit about let's talk about what's plant-based cooking good looking.
And it's great because you're in the South, and when I first came up with the name, I heard it with the twang. So whenever I say it, I certainly don't have a Southern accent, but I say, "What's plant-based cooking good looking?" So because like you kind of hear what's cooking good looking, and so I wanted to be what's plant-based cooking good looking. So yeah, that's fun. Yeah, so it started originally as me just wanting to share recipes that I was making. I think that's how it started. Yeah, it was like I'm not a recipe creator. I just start eating something and like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And so I started a Facebook group and started mailing out a newsletter and was just sort of sharing the different things that I was eating. And then was it 2 years ago already? Yeah, almost 2 years ago. I'd been cooking at that point for a while. I'm like, well, what if we like taught people how to cook it? And I know that there's plenty of other people teaching cooking, but I'm like, what? I'm not a trained chef. So at first, I actually hired a trained chef who I met at the plant-based nutrition program through Cornell. And I hosted this cooking show. And we did 3 episodes, and it was really great. And we cooked great things together, and that was really good. But then I realized, wait a second, most people aren't trained chefs. And I'm not a trained chef, and I get dinner on the table, 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week. I can do this. I can cook. I can teach people how to cook. And so starting last year, I started hosting and teaching these cooking classes. I figured, you know what? I'm going to cook dinner tonight anyway. Let's just put a camera on me and I'll just talk about it. And so that's basically what I did. And so last year for Veganuary, I launched a 4-session cooking course. And I just taught some of the easy recipes that I make. And people were like, oh, it's not that hard. And you made it kind of fun. I'm like, see, it's not that hard and it's kind of fun. And then you just build your repertoire. And I have, a book with all the recipes that I enjoy in it. I also have some of them in my computer. And I actually have a list of meals that I enjoy because I forget. I'm like, because now that there's so many that I've tried, and some of them, they haven't all been good. Maybe they were good the way the original chef made them, but I butchered it. I don't know. But that probably wasn't a good vegan term. But it's been a really fun journey learning how to cook and try different recipes and fail on some and be successful on others. And my husband eats food that he never even ate like before. He used to not even eat Mexican food. And now his 2 favorite meals that I make are fajitas and tacos. And the tacos I make are not with the Impossible Burger. They're with, it's with a riced cauliflower base and mushroom. And it's like really healthy food. And it's super easy. And it comes together in like 10 minutes. And it's one of his favorite things. And I'm like, and you wouldn't even eat Mexican food before. And now you're eating plant-based tacos. So it's pretty great.
That sounds good.
Yeah. And he won't eat beans. So I have to hide them. So I make a lentil pasta bolognese that is so delicious. It's so authentic and it's from scratch. And it's not my recipe, but I make it and I've taught other people how to make it. And it's just delicious. And like, see, you're eating beans. Look at that,
You're making me hungry. That sounds wonderful.
Sorry, I know it's already the afternoon where you are. It's still morning. I just had my oats for breakfast. So.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because you're in California, right?
I'm in California.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I love it. I love that. Well, The what's plant based cooking good looking. So definitely. Now, tell us some other about your other books that you have. I mean, you've written kids books also.
Yeah, so I was not planning on being a writer. This was, oh my goodness, what year was this? 2009, I guess it was. And I don't know, I was pretty involved with animal rescue. And I guess, yeah, our first dog had passed a while ago. Um, no, is that true? Yeah, he had recently passed. And it sounds really weird to say this out loud, but I was kind of like handed a pen and a piece of paper by the universe and asked to sit in a chair and write out my story. And I did. And I didn't know what to do with the story. And I ended up turning it into a book. And when I say my story, the story of how we adopted our first dog, because my husband, it's called JJ the American Street Dog, and how he came to live in our house. And the idea was that my husband and I, well, we were still boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. We wanted a dog, and we didn't. This was in the '90s. We didn't know anything about animal rescue. It wasn't like a big thing back then. And so we were going to go get our golden retriever. That was our breed of choice. And I was just about to start researching breeders. And my husband, now husband's friend from work, found a puppy on a field. He'd been playing soccer that all afternoon or in the evening, and there was this puppy at the end, and he assumed it was somebody's puppy that was just hanging. But everybody left, and it was just him and the puppy. And the puppy was sniffing around the garbage, no tags, but a choke collar that was too tight. So he put the puppy in his car and called my husband and said, I found this puppy. I can't keep him. I'm in an apartment. I know you guys are thinking about a dog. Would you consider taking this dog? And my husband said, let me speak to Diane. And you should have seen my body language. I was like, I don't want some street dog and they're mangy and nasty and no. And my husband, I was really obnoxious. And my husband's like, can we just look at the dog? I'm like, okay, we're just looking. So his work friend brought the dog to work the next day. My husband said, he's really cute. I said, all right, I'll look. And he comes home that night. I'll never forget him pulling up in his car with this little fluffy puppy on his lap. The windows rolled down. I fell in love immediately. He was so cute. Not a golden retriever by any stretch of the imagination. He was just a little mixed breed dog. Probably, I think he ended up being like 45 pounds. He was 3 or 4 months at the time, and I fell in love immediately. And I wouldn't have even known where to take him. Like, I didn't even know about animal shelters. I wouldn't have even known if I didn't want him. So it's a good thing we fell in love. But what it did is it prompted me to want to tell other people. It's like me going vegan, like telling people, hey, if I can go vegan, you can go vegan. It was the same thing. It was like, if I can adopt a dog or rescue a dog accidentally, so can you. Like, we don't need to go to breeders or backyard breeders or get these puppy mill dogs. Look at your shelters, look at the rescue groups, help a dog in need first. So that was that story in this book. And then I wrote a whole series around it, but only ended up publishing another one behind it called JJ Goes to Puppy Class, because what's really the next thing you do once you've adopted a dog or even purchased a dog? You want your dog to get trained. And we have a new dog right now, and we are in the thick of training her. And then in 2016-ish, I wrote a book for adults called What to Expect When Adopting a Dog. And it just sort of goes through all the different steps of thinking about the whole process. Are you even ready for a dog? And where do you go looking for a dog? And now you've got the dog, what are the things that you need? You'll need a leash, just sort of, what are the things? You go for a vet visit, you go to teach your dog puppy class, just all the steps that one would take when adopting a dog. And at the time that I published it, there were a lot of links to articles and things, which I think are now defunct, but I'm sure people would understand. You still get a lot out of the book, even without the links and everything. So, but it's kind of funny that we've got this brand new dog who's now 16 months old. She's wild. Like, we've never had a dog like her. We've had young dogs, we've had big dogs, we've had strong dogs. She's just like next level. And I'm like, it's pretty funny that I wrote this book and this is the dog that I have at this point, but it is what it is.
Well, that's the journey.
That's the journey, exactly. And as somebody pointed out, I will learn something from her, and I learn from her every day. It's really been a process. And now I'm writing a book about being vegan, so I don't know when that'll come out. It was supposed to be done a year and a half ago, and here we are. But I'm working on that book.
And what about being vegan? I mean, is it a tell us about it if you can.
Well, yeah, originally it wasn't, it's still being shaped a little bit, but originally it was just really like a quick book because there's a lot of really comprehensive books out there about going vegan. But there's a marketing person who I'm familiar with, and she's called the Quiet Marketer, and she's all about like bite-sized things. So I'm like, what if this was a really short book that people could get through in about an hour or so and get the gist, and then be able to like go start taking steps from there. So that was sort of the gist. That's sort of the gist, and then an idea came to me, which I think I'll keep under wraps at the moment because I'm not sure if I'm going to end up using it, but it has to do with the connection between being vegan and love. So
Mm.
we'll see if I end up interspersing that in the book because I think it'll give it a lot more texture if I do that. But I have to finish the book and then go back and rewrite it with this new love theme interspersed. But I need to get this dog settled down a little bit first before I have more time to get back to that writing.
Right. Well, where can people buy your books?
Anywhere books are sold, and ideally your favorite bookstore locally. If it's not there, ask for it. Um, I'll put them up again. JJ the American Street Dog. Great. Actually, I take that back. This is the only one that's available everywhere. These two books I pulled from the bookstores. It's a long story why, but they are available on my website, which is what's plant-based cooking good looking, or just what's plant-basedcooking.com. It'll get you there. And there's a page, I think it's about Diane, and there's a drop-down menu, and it's about my books, and there's also my films are on there too that I made. And those are all free. The films are free.
Wonderful. All right. And y'all, if you're liking this, please subscribe. I see that Vegan Knowledge JJ is here. Thanks for joining us. She just wrote a book too. So I want to write a book also. I mean, it sounds like a lot of fun and inspiring. And I mean, JJ, we were talking about another JJ.
Just moments ago, we must
Right.
have manifested this other JJ.
That's funny. Well, tell us about your films. And then about the films and we'll go ahead with the films. I want to hear, about, the human animal bond. I mean, that's what the films are about. Is that right?
Yeah, I was at actually a Blog Pause convention years ago. Blog Pause is an organization that supports people who are in basically the dog and cat businesses, and it helps them with it. I don't think it exists the way it's had many iterations. I'm not sure what the iteration is right now, but it was about people who blogged about that stuff. And I think I had a blog at one point specifically about the animal rescue that I did. And so I was at this convention, and the keynote speaker was from HABRI, and HABRI is the Human Animal Bond Research Institute. And they were coming out with all these studies that showed that we're healthier when we're around animals, that when we pet an animal, we calm down, and it's better for our blood pressure and for our physical health. And it was all these studies that they were doing. And I was like, wow, this is so amazing. Like, people need to know about this. And that was when I had that aha also of like the first part of the aha, which was if more people knew how amazing animals were, maybe we'd stop eating them. Which I later realized that wasn't the connection that was going to happen. But when I came home from that convention, I was actually I was doing volunteer work with an organization that pairs at-risk middle schoolers and high schoolers with shelter dogs. And over, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 weeks, I can't remember how many weeks it is, every week these kids, actually, no, I take that back. I think this was the intensive program where they come like every day for a couple of weeks. And the dogs come out of the shelter for the day, and the kids train the dogs. Well, the kids bond with the dogs because they get one dog assigned to them for the program. And the idea is that the kids are helping to train the dogs so that the dogs become more adoptable, which is really noble and it's great. And it actually makes a difference because when you see that little sign at the shelter that says, this dog has been trained by blah, blah, blah organization, this one's called Canine Connection, you're like, oh, well, a partially trained dog, it sounds very appealing to me, right? But what it did for the kids was remarkable. And again, there's been studies done on this that the kids, these kids that like they couldn't connect with their peers and they'd been abused at home and they'd seen animal abuse. All of a sudden they're like connecting with an animal and they're feeling some compassion and love for another being. And now they're connecting with their peers and they're making, I actually have chills talking about it because it really is quite a beautiful program. And there's programs like this that also happen with farm animals too, that this is not exclusive just to dogs, but that's the program I was involved with. And the woman who was running the program at the time, I was so excited. I came back from this convention in Habry and these studies and she said, oh, you should make a documentary. And I never did that before, but I've made books. I figured that out. My husband's in the movie business. I can meet people. I'll know people. And okay. So I started making short films. I think there's 5 on my website that they're like 3 to 5 minutes long. They're really short films. They're, and they talk about just these themes of, one of them is about a therapist who uses her dog in her therapy practice because you open up and, you're sitting there petting the dog. Just the presence of the dog enables you to start talking. There's just so many applications where animals help people when they don't even mean to be. And it's just really quite beautiful. So that's what the films were about. And I loved making them. It was really fun. Glad I did. And I'm also aware that that's not my path to make more films, at least not at this point.
Right. Well, those sound beautiful. So everyone definitely check those out
Yeah.
on your website. How
Yeah.
inspiring to be able to do that. I did work with a program similar to that, Canine Cellmates in Atlanta.
Yes, I know Canine Cellmates. Yeah.
Yeah. So those programs are life changing, and
Mm-hmm.
and many of those people involved in the programs never had a chance to bond with an animal, and it's something that they might not ever had it might not have ever happened to have in their life. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is really very, very powerful and beautiful. We need more of these programs, getting kids back to nature,
Mm-hmm.
back to animals, back to the essence of life.
Yeah, that's some of my favorite programs. Are these programs like the inmate programs? That's amazing. I mean, because people who are hardened criminals, they get paired with a puppy that needs training, similar to the at-risk kid program is really hoping to keep the kids out of that system. Like that's what they're trying to prevent is these kids ever being in prison, so that they don't actually have to start backpedaling. But there's also programs that bring inner city kids who have really only seen concrete out to a farm animal sanctuary where it's the first time seeing trees and grass and whatnot, but also saying, look, that's a cow. I can brush a cow, and there's this like beauty and deep connection, and it's transformative. Like everybody should have this experience, whether or not you live in an inner city. And I do recommend going to find a farm sanctuary, an animal sanctuary, and go meeting the residents and learning about their lives and connecting with them, because even for people who already were aware of all of this stuff, it's beautiful, and I want to do more of it.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. The first time I they I went to a farm sanctuary and they said, "Do you want to have a rake and scratch the cow's back?" And I said, "Sure." That was exciting. I'll never forget that. And all these are just little gems of experiences that really are soul touching. I mean, they really touch our souls.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Beautiful. I see Angela, who we were speaking of. Speak of Angela. She's here. Dr. Angela
Hi, Angela.
Crawford. She's very sweet. I mean, she says we're both great role models for compassionate living, as is
Oh,
she.
she's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Very kind and compassionate.
She's got a book coming out too. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, the vegan transformation. I got mine
Hmm.
ordered in the mail, so we'll see.
That's great. I think I ordered mine, but if I didn't, that's a good reminder that I'm going to go do that.
Yes, because, well, I mean, it's always wonderful to have these sources of inspiration. I mean, for when we get down. I know that I was at Unity North Church the other day, and the Reverend Richard was talking about having our um, like our bank account, our spiritual bank account, right? Ready, and then some of these stories you're telling are in, they will go into my spiritual bank account. So when I'm feeling down, I can think about, your story of sharing with the youth, and they're
Hmm.
changing their lives. And to bring me, sometimes we get overwhelmed and feel a lot of sadness. And for me, hearing these stories and knowing that, wow, if I'm feeling down, I can go to Diane's website and check out some of those films. Um,
That's a great idea. That's a brilliant idea.
and what do you do, like when you're feeling overwhelmed and down and discouraged about life?
um, lately, it's been yoga and swimming. Those two, really exercise and going for a walk. And we have this new dog, so we go for a lot of walks. And one of my neighbors isn't well, and I've been walking her dog for the last 6 months because she can't really walk her dog. And so between walking my dog and walking the neighbor's dog and yoga and swimming and other exercise stuff that I do, though, and I meditate. I used to meditate twice a day. Now I'm just down to once a day just because I've been busy with this dog. I mean, life really flipped upside down with this dog, but it's just once a day now for that. And cooking. I enjoy cooking and eating. I'm a big eater. I love to eat. I eat, and that's what I love about the whole food plant based. I eat all day. I love it. I'm always eating fruits, vegetables, whatever, you know. And so a lot of eating, a lot of cooking, and um, yeah, just movement and quiet, and and reading. And you know what? So often I love reading all these other great vegan authored books, but right now my brain just needs fiction. I just need to turn off my brain and not be so serious and just have like a little silly. I mean, I'm reading a silly book right now, and I'm I just need that at night at the moment. So that's what I'm doing. Just turn off the seriousness.
I feel that way too. I mean, sometimes I'll feel I just want to read something very chill, and I'll look around and all my books are, I mean, very spiritual, which is
Yeah.
beautiful, but it's like, wow, that's too heavy for me right now. I actually have a lot of my kids, my books when I was a child. So sometimes I'll read those. And I was actually read the James and the Giant Peach the other night. Some of that, it
Oh,
was
that's
fun.
great. That's
Yeah,
great. That's a great one.
that was a good escape. So, escape from adulthood for a while.
It's a great
But
book.
yeah, so it sounds like you're doing so much and you have another book on the way. Is there what else is happening in your future?
Oh, it is also uncertain right now. So I think we'll leave it at that. I feel like the book coming down the pike, more cooking classes. In fact, Angela and I are talking about doing something together. So we'll see how that works out, and we'll
Mm,
certainly let everybody know if we can do that. And or I should say when we do that, we're planning on it. And yeah, after that, there might be some big life changes for me or not. So we're in a bit of a holding pattern right now, trying actually to move, but not at the moment being able to do that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see.
right.
We'll see.
And what kind of your dog is your dog now?
Oh my goodness, she appears to be, and we haven't had her DNA tested, which I'm not so sure. I put too much stock into that anyway. But she appears to be a shepherd and a boxer, maybe pit bull. That's sort of what she looks like. Like she's got that, that big square head. I love pit bull dogs. I love pit bull type dogs. I love that. Um, she definitely has some shepherd. And at first, I wasn't thinking boxer, but somebody pointed out on the street, "Oh, she looks like a boxer." And I was like, "Oh," and I looked up the boxer breed, and she's got white socks up to like her middle of, and I'm like, that's a boxer. That boxers look like that. And she uses her paws a lot, which is something that's where they get the name from boxer, you know.
Oh,
And she's relentless. And I've been reading about boxer personalities, and I was like, I wish I had known this going into it. I might have made a different choice, but I think the universe handed me this dog for a reason. So the universe
right.
chose for me.
And you got her from the shelter?
Yes, we did.
I didn't know if she wandered up. You never know.
No, a couple of, well, that first dog that we got, JJ,
Yeah.
was found in the soccer field. The next dog we got, T-Bone, my husband found on the street when he was driving. She was with her sister, and he's like, there's two dogs here. What do we do? But put them in the car. We'll figure it out later, you know? And, you know, nobody claimed them. So we found a home for one of them, and we kept one. Um, and then we fostered two dogs along the way. And then our next dog, Gonzo, was from the shelter. And then our next dog, Ninja, was through a rescue group, and he had they all had crazy stories, but especially Ninja. His first year, he was tied up in a backyard. I saw a video of them just like tossing kibble out to him in the back. It's less than ideal. And then he was in the shelter system for 3 months, but then he was red listed to be euthanized. And so the rescue group that had pulled him out of that first house, they went and got him. And so he was in a foster home for a few months, but the foster's dog didn't like him, which I don't understand. He was the sweetest dog, but that dog didn't like him. And then he went to boarding because she couldn't. So this dog really was in, for the first 2 years of his life, was either in a really bad situation or the shelter or just not ideal. And so he was a delight. He was such a good dog. So I was really, I
Oh,
was really glad we got him.
I love that story.
Yeah. So I just feel bad that his first 2 years were so terrible. And now we've got this one, and who knows what her first 11 months were like. I don't know. And she was 13 months when we got her 3 months ago. So we have a very young, but she's learning. She's so smart. Every week she's got a long way to go, but we're also cognizant that she's come a long way too. So we got to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's wonderful. Um, well, I see we're coming up at the end of the hour, so I want to remind everyone to subscribe and be sure to visit us at at www.all-creatures.org and help us support this program and others by making a one-time donation, one-time reoccurring donation of any amount. So, and also to make sure you go check out Diane's website to see her films and to order her books and to get to know her better. This has been very exciting. So, do you have any final words for us, Diane?
Oh goodness. I don't know that I have anything so profound necessarily to share, other than my only regret is not having gone vegan sooner. And I think a lot of vegans that I meet, that's our primary regret, that we didn't do it sooner. And I guess just as we were saying earlier, just have compassion for others and have compassion for, starting compassion for myself for not having gone vegan sooner, and then having compassion for everybody else, because everybody's on their journey, right? And it's our job to do our part. It's not our job to do everybody's part. It's our job to do our part, whatever that is, however that looks, even if it's just eating plant-based, and that's where you start. That if that's what the message is, that's what you're to do right now, then do that. That's all you can do.
Right. And that's beautiful. You're enough and do what you can do. It is making a difference. And you're really making a difference, Diane, teaching people how they can transition. So that's hugely important. So thank you for joining us. And
Thank
thank
you so much for having me. It's been delightful.
This has been wonderful. You'll have to come back. And I'm appreciative for everybody watching, Ellen, JJ, and Angela, and everybody watching on the replay. So, Diane, thank you again. And I guess we'll just say goodbye, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.